What's up, guys, and welcome to this video. I'm excited. We're going to dive deep into the mystic archetype and some of the mysteries behind it. This is Estelle. Everyone say what's up to Estelle. Estelle. um, yeah, I'm excited. Estelle's a very close friend, and she's amazing. And so I'm excited to see her be able to showcase her abilities and just her knowledge, her wealth of knowledge. She's kind of like my witch mama in some ways, where she gives me all this wisdom on my young witcher path. But really, we want to get into the mystic archetype and kind of embrace it from the masculine side, the feminine side. I want to go dive into Estelle, your experience in tarot, and then just kind of go from there. So welcome. I'm excited to finally collaborate with you, and you're looking very beautiful as a fairy, your fairy self today. So
thank you, Ricky. Oh my goodness, I'm excited too. I feel like we have so much overlap, like when you talked about doing a video together, it was like an immediate
talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Into some content. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to run out of anything to talk about. There's so much. And I do appreciate your everything that you're doing for the masculine side of things.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I have a son, and I want him to grow up in a world where there are like healthy role models for boys and men, and what you're doing and the way that you're doing it. Like I'm very picky. I'm very careful about the energies that I want to, I'm very sensitive. I know you work with a lot, you talk about working with empaths and, I have to keep my field really clean. And I've always found that your content fits really nicely into that category. So
thank you. Yeah, we should go into that toward the end is empaths, because that is going to be a lot of the people that are watching this is they are empaths and sensitivities. And I kind of feel like empaths are like the new witches and wizards nowadays. And it's kind of crazy diving into that. That's why I feel like this topic is so relevant, because there's like almost like a renaissance we're going in. And I even know like someone close to me that, to heal her abilities so she can make more of an impact on the world, she's had to go do like past life healing and heal some of those witch wounds of being a witch in a past life, and that's wild, because that is kind of a part of our collective consciousness. Is anything that's different or outside the narrative, we burn it and kill it before it can threaten us.
Right. Well, and I wish I could tell you that was in the past. There's a lot of people out there who may be listening to this secretly because, their parents or their society, their area that they're living in isn't a free space to talk about anything esoteric or a little bit more magical, a little bit, these are words that are very comfortable to me. And I'm grateful that I didn't have that oppressive, but I'm aware of it, and my family of origin, it wasn't too far back in the past where these things were very unacceptable. And I still have family, who they sort of can't see the value in the ways that I connect with spirit and the way and the type of work and the healing work that I do. But, I just sort of put them in a bubble of love and let them be where they are. And,
no, just kidding.
Absolutely. And I'm grateful, like I said, that I'm free and where I live and where I am to practice the way that I choose to.
Yeah. I've had to work on a lot of shame and still kind of have to remind myself, because I come from a very like Christian household, strict Christian household, where it was, witches is the work of the devil, so to like consider yourself a mystic or, someone in those that wants to go into those esoteric domains and explore and work on themselves through spirit is like, it brings a lot up.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear around it, and just basically, somebody had said to me once that it takes a certain level of privilege just to have this space and time to, process this information. I do understand where that desire comes to sort of like push away You hear the word witch, and it's been like, codified as something very dangerous and scary. And of course, in order to create a power imbalance with the feminine, and ultimately the wisdom and the joys of these, these mystical arts, they push through because people get sick and they want to. I gotta switch off my dinger. Something magical going on there. All right.
Something magical is gonna happen.
Something magical is gonna happen, right? Yeah. So I feel like there's still always going to be truth seekers, because those ways, when we close ourselves off for them, people are getting sick. People who are only using the prescribed technologies are and the other thing that I've noticed is that, like, gradually the sort of more mainstream world will take things from magic, and they will like change the language, which is actually quite magical in and of itself. They will kind of take out the spirituality from it and then repackage it as like cognitive behavioral therapy, or these kind
something
of
that Westerners can digest and get their head around. And it's funny that you say that it steals from mysticism, and I mean even the like religions, I feel, do that too. Like I feel like Christianity does that as well. And a lot of I know, like, even from my religion, the guy who founded it, which was Jehovah's Witnesses, he stole a lot from the Freemasons, and within a secret society. And even his where he's laid dead is like a big pyramid on top of it. And so that's like the river he was stealing from to start his little church. That's like, now, last I checked, it's like 6 million people or something like that.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's wild. Yeah.
It's anyone that wants to tell me that their way is the only way. That's my only kind of like, if you're telling me that your God doesn't let me into heaven unless I'm in his, in his little gang, then that's my big red flag. Everyone else, like, I have a lot of friends who I feel are like the right kind of Christians. I love Jesus. Jesus is on my altar. He's a wonderful archetype. And, we just talked about the son, right? that I want to have good role models for my son.
Right.
To me, there's like so much to be gained to look at, like, what was positive about what Jesus was doing. He was standing up to authority. Yeah, what could have he done better, for sure? Like, not died. But ultimately, I believe that the story, he had to die. We talk about the archetypes, and in the archetype of the son, once he gets older, he becomes, the adult male. And so the story has to sort of end for him to stay as the son. Then we can have a trilogy. Then we can have, the Father and the Holy Spirit. So, to me, I see all of these stories are only as helpful as the people reading them and how they,
interpret it.
Right. And metabolize it into practice. Right.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, even like you said with like Jesus, it's taken me a little bit to come back around and be like, I like the guy, I just don't like 90% of the interpretations that you hear from him. But like, that's kind of where you go into like your connection with spirit, right? Of your connection with, what would that be? The Buddha, whatever Buddha.
Yeah, the archetype. I love that word. It's like one of my favorite things to talk about. The tarot is filled with archetypes, right? And ultimately, I've seen people overlay qualities onto Jesus that to me are divine mother qualities. Jesus is unconditionally loving. Like, and so are a lot of young men. They're so unconditionally loving, and they're not necessarily, but it's a slightly different energy, isn't it? Jesus is kind of like got more yang, and he wanted to actually change the world with that unconditional love. There's like a different, yes, he wanted to make impact. Exactly. Thank you. So, but some people will just, I think there's a bit of fear if your parents have been very negative about witchy kind of like archetypes. Well, let's just put all of those qualities into Jesus, and then I'm allowed to pray to these qualities because I'm not going to get into trouble. Well,
I remember there was a book. I like some of the Christian mysticism literature out there, where it's like Christian mysticism, and they have Jesus in that light, where I just see him as a mystic.
Yeah.
Jesus and Christianity are two different things. And Jesus, like I still want to know what he did in his 20s, right? Like no one talks about that. No one knows. We just got the legends. But there was one that talked about like when he did miracles, he did them at night and told people like not to tell other people, because he was like the witch of the time, right? Of the religions. Yeah. And so when you look at it from that, and that's what I love too, is like he rebelled against the religions of his time. And so, and that's the thing that sticks out to me as a leader, is like, okay, you want to be like Jesus, not like have to have him as a godhead. Like he's an example model of like greatness that you could follow. I really like, and I know I've talked about this with you, is Krishna, which I call Blue Jesus, right? He's that Blue Jesus, baby.
Well, that blue color is so beautiful, right? It's sort of like a throat, heart chakra kind of thing. Like I think of that bluey green color. Like I do a lot of work, not just with tarot, but with, Reiki healing and the vortex healing, and that color of Krishna is just so throat opening and allows us to express ourselves. And that's kind of like a young male energy, right? To really like, even now, like, there's a lot of people who would be like, bitch, shut up. Like who asked you to the party? Right. And I've got some Krishna, I've got my masculinity that wants to run a business and wants to, like be active and not just lay around having people give me flowers and chocolates all day long, so we've all got to find a little bit of that, what's true and what works for us and what's a balance, right? Yeah, I gotta love some Krishna.
What I love about Krishna is, one, he's androgynous. So there's a male and female side of him. Two is like when he was like a kid, he defeated all like the demons just for playing for the love of the game. Like he just loved what he was doing. So he thought the demons like torturing him was just play. And so he just got better than them at it because they had an outcome, which I think is hilarious. And he just made everyone fall in love with him. And he was a multidimensional being. Like Osho talked about Krishna, and that was like my favorite.
Yeah, Osho's somebody that we both like, right? We've talked about that. I love his juiciness and just the vibrancy of what he took out of everything.
Did you ever watch Wild Wild Country about
I did.
I was rooting for them the whole time, but even though they're like super like culty and shit, but yeah.
Before I watched Wild Wild Country, the things that I knew about Osho came from people who'd traveled to India and stayed at the university. I don't know if you heard of it, the ashram in India. And a couple of people that I was really close with had spent a lot of time there, and they'd never actually met Osho, but his legacy had lived on in the way that the place was set up. And my first and my main Reiki master, who initiated me as a master, her training was through Osho. So, it was really hard. It would be very, very difficult to push me away from like his core teachings, whatever. However, I feel like there's often a core teaching that's happening, and the people are still people. Like he was still a human.
Yeah.
Maharaji, who you and I talk about a lot, still a human, still died of diabetes, he had a physical body.
Yeah, in a hospital. Like
in a hospital, right?
Like all Christ-like, and his like body, his like spirit floated above. No, he was in a hospital like the rest of us.
Right. So what went down in Wild Wild Country to me was like a bunch of humans who received a magic, which was ready. It was time. There's a book by Elizabeth Gilbert, who she wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And she wrote this, I think her finest work was actually this book, Big Magic. And in Big Magic, she talks about the magic of our consciousness, our human consciousness, and how we are evolving. Our vibration is expanding over these generations and generations. And at some point, we're just ready for a certain magic. And I feel like Osho's magic was like ready in that period in the 1980s. It was like ready to happen. And everyone went a little nuts about it. And they were like, what if we could do this on a giant piece of land? Guess what? America has these giant pieces of land.
Yeah.
But of course, it doesn't really, I think it was the Nike family or something, right? They talk about in the Wild Wild Country, like there were those like hardcore Christians there, just couldn't Like it went too far.
Two worlds colliding from like
really.
But I loved it. I was taking notes, like as far as like I was like, oh, this is a little Jesus walking around trying to make a utopia. Like, yeah, like he fucked it up in some areas of the chick that was working with him, but like, hey, like, right, he's still human. He's got the Christ-like energy, and then he's got his humanness too.
And he was so smart. Like he really had a huge library and a huge amount of interesting things to draw on. And that to me is something that I really resonate with, is that, you know, I can look at a person like that and kind of a guru, you know, like, and see what is it about the way that he lived his life that is really beneficial to me. I'm not a person who's ever wanted to live in an intentional community. Like, you know, and I know a lot of people. One of the people who I mentioned who had gone over there never stops talking about, oh, this intentional community, that way, you know, like I want to have like these rules and I'm quite okay in regular society, so long as I've got like doors that I can close, and like, I guess my own home is my intentional community. But, you know, for people, I still receive those teachings and the dynamism. Like he wanted people to move energy, right?
The dynamic meditation.
Like absolutely. And like how many people, if they would just like shake it up a little bit, so many of their issues, you know, right. Just get that energy moving somehow. We're like they say that sitting is the new cancer, right?
Or even just being on your phone. I have to do like phone detoxes regularly too, because it's just that mode you get into, and then that thought process. It's wild. So let's
did you hear about phubbing? I've just heard this phubbing, 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 and this kind of relates to that thing that we talked about off camera, I guess, about proximity and presence. Phubbing is when you snub somebody with your phone.
Oh, so by getting on your phone?
Yeah, like you're hanging out with them, but you're not really talking to them.
Yeah. So
you're
it's like
snubbing them, but you're phubbing them.
Snobbing. Yeah, snobbatry with phone. Got it. Nice. I'll remember that one. So let's talk about tarot, and I want to get like your insight. Like, what is your take on the mystic archetype? Like, just the basics of like for someone who maybe is an empath waking up to abilities or just deeper awareness of life, or just for a fifth grader who is like, what the fuck is a mystic archetype?
Yeah, I hope that the fifth graders get to see this video, because I love it when kids are young and interested. So I think when we were talking about this idea, I see you very much in this archetype for me. Somebody who's careful with their words, because words are, you know, important, and words are magical, you know? So I started a series of little videos, and we started with the Fool, and maybe the Fool's not so careful. The Fool's just playful and being a kid. But by the time they get to the next card in the major arcana, which is the Magician or the Mystic, you know, by that point, they're a little bit more mature. They've grown up a ways, and now they're recognizing their impact, and that their words have impact, and that their energy has impact. So the Rider-Waite deck, this is the Magician and the Rider-Waite. He has on the table all the elements that you are going to see in the tarot: the sword, the cup, the pentacles, the wand. And he's already started to recognize the magic of the sword. Like the word is mightier than the sword, right? He's already started to recognize that, you know, he's holding a wand that creates magic, and his magical spells just come. That blue Krishna energy is his magic. It's anything that's coming out of his throat, right?
Right.
You know, and do you want to present to the world a full cup? You know, the cups are our love and our energy. Do we want to be coming out into the world with energy that says, hey, my cup is full. I did my self-care. I took care of myself, and I can take care of you. You know, the masculine protects and provides. And so, like, for whether it's a woman watching this or a man watching this, to me, the magician energy, the sorcerer or the sorceress, we are in our creativity. We are in our our masculinity a little bit with the magician card. By the time we get to the high priestess, which is the next card, then we're a little bit more in the receptive. But in the magician, we have to be thinking, like, even now as I'm doing this, right, I have to be like conscious, intentional. That's a really important word for the mystic, is intentionality. Yeah.
And I think part of that is like going into the unknown, going into nature and the forest to kind of, I know for me, to kind of figure out how to be intentional, right? And you get your energy aligned. You hear a lot about manifesting thought, words, and actions aligned. But I think it even starts with me as an empath to feel it in my body.
You're I'm loving this so much, because what was the last thing that I didn't say was on the table was the pentacle, and the pentacle's the earth. So you immediately, because you're a natural at this, geared into that. How do we fill our cup so that we can show up with the right words and the right, energy? We go out into nature. We're intentional about what we eat, about what we drink. Whenever I do that, I have to drink water.
Nice.
Yeah. So we have to make sure we're hydrated, like really basic things that I feel like a lot of empaths need to hear, that if you're going to be an impactful magician, sorceress in this world, that the key really starts with nature, right?
Yeah. Especially if you want to be a healer or like some type of empathic coach, where you're taking on other people's energy. And like, that's, you talk about that too, having like energetic hygiene. And that's something that's been really important to me as well, is like maintaining my energetic hygiene, knowing when I'm sensitive, and knowing it's okay to have bad days. Even when you're in this work, it's okay to be depressed, anxious, feeling like shit, because you have those downspouts too, where your energy has to adjust. And I know for me, I've just trained myself to, when that happens, to surrender to it, just relax, take that day off, and know that a breakthrough is coming. I just need to recharge my energy. And
you had said that to me. I remember a while ago when, you had started coaching me a little bit, and you had said to me, your heart's expanding. Like in that moment, and that was such a liberating, just a liberating magic. What a great spell, rather than, oh my goodness, I'm feeling sick and I'm down. No, like I'm actually growing in that moment, and I need to let my body grow, and I need to let my heart grow. And you've really helped me to challenge, any what was the word you used? Just limiting beliefs. Yeah, just really, and that is like such a skill. That is a magical skill, to challenge limiting beliefs. The magician reversed will walk around saying, I can't, you can't, nobody, the magician upright is like, of course you can. Don't let anybody tell you can't. Right?
That's awesome. So how does the high septon card, or the high priestess card, differ from the magician?
Thank you. Yeah. So if you think about, like, in the olden days, the high priestess would be up in the temple, and she would just be sitting on her throne there. She doesn't go out seeking or preaching. She's just venerated. She's receptive to the gifts that are brought, and she holds all this feminine wisdom, right? She just like, she knows but the codes, but you have to come to her, and you have to come and receive that. So the high priestess is really a beautiful like feminine equivalent, in that she's just to me, she's in the yin energy equivalent. So she's still magical. Like, you ask her anything, people would go up to the temple to bring offerings and ask and come with their questions to the high priestess. And she's more like just rested, in her feminine and in her cycles.
Do you know very many or examples of women that kind of are in the like guru phase? Because you hear about like Osho or like Jesus Christ or Maharaji. It's like all in the masculine. I know I was listening to a podcast, and Ram Dass mentioned one in India. This woman, she kind of just fell out of her she fell out of her, I think, marriage, just dropped because she found God, right? She just got connected to God. And so she just kind of like was like, I don't give a fuck about this. And then she came into like went down and came back around into like the guru thing where just millions of people would like flock to her, and she just radiated this energy. But to her, she was kind of like still lost in Ram or God, she was just like lost in that. And so all the people coming up to her were just the illusion kind of visiting her in different
Yeah.
forms. So,
I mean, the one that has kind of stolen my heart along the way has been Amma. I don't know if that's who you're talking about. I don't think so. But Amma is the word Amma is like sounds very maternal. I think it does come from that. But she's the hugging saint. She's still alive, and if you watch a video of her, she's just. But I don't know if she's so much. I think she has high priestess energy, but maybe there's more. She has a little bit of the Hierophant too. She's a bit of a teacher too. Like she does her energy. She does go around the world and do things where there are almost, to me, Maharaji was, even though he was in a male body, he had
very
more
motherly.
high priestess energy to me because he just stayed where he was and people came to him, and he had a very like sort of feminine energy about him in a certain way. I mean, there was masculine too, like he would tell people to go away and he would like flick people away or whatever. But I do like, in terms of like high priestess sort of nature, just to sit and have people like come in that way. Yeah. But Amma has this very you just have to see her to see the vibration coming off of her of just completely loving acceptance. And there's a great wisdom there too. Like she's not an empty sort of, like ignorant grandma or something. She's also like super well versed in what is happening scientifically in the world, and has been a really massive had really massive impact by the answers that she's given to people when they come with their questions. So from that perspective, I feel a lot of high priestess energy from Amma.
That's awesome. Can you go take us deeper into like the world of tarot? And like how did it get started? Like what was it used for? What makes you passionate about tarot since you do it?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably my preferred way to answer is personally, and it came to me quite magically. So I started out on my like mystical journey with this Reiki master that I mentioned, who had studied with Osho, and I was actually just working behind the counter at a little crystal shop. I did a lot of retail through college, and I'd come over to live in the States, and I gave up my 9 to 5 to come here with my kid's father, who we were young and married at the time. And I was really quite raised very scientifically, like everything has to make sense empirically. And, that was the way I was raised. And it didn't, but I still wanted to be in this crystal shop, right? Because it was so colorful and vibrant. And that's like, you and I have talked about, like, I have a little bit of a fairy pixie energy that, wanted to be there. My inner child wanted to be there. But then my like ego, my brain was like, a big no to all this. And there was a tarot reader there. I never got a reading from her. I thought she was great. She was lovely to me. But I was very closed off to it. But I did, the Italian girl who was the Reiki master, she was like, we are doing this or I'm not going to be your friend. Like she was super pushy about it. And eventually I was like, all right, I'll do your stupid Reiki thing, and then it like just changed my life. It really did. I came into my body in a different way. And then over the years, I mostly practiced hypnotherapy. I trained to be a hypnotherapist, and I started to, which has, a little bit more empirical research behind it, but it was like a bridge for me, like gradually the tattoos got bigger and bigger. It wasn't like an immediate thing, I sort of slid into it. And now my company is a world of woo, and everything woo is like the things that I love, but it didn't happen overnight. And the tarot thing happened very magically. Like they say that when you're going to read tarot, like it will just sort of be like thrust upon you, somebody will give it to you.
Right.
I did get a reading up at Kripalu, which is a yoga retreat center in Massachusetts. And I think it was the third reading after I used to go there like once a year. My mentor, Vicky, who I still work with, she's maybe a high priestess lady. She just said to me, like, you're going to read the tarot. And I looked at her, I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm just a mom who, like, you know, I make mosaics and I do occasional hypnotherapy sessions. And I might, you know, I just like brushed her off. And then I was doing my next hypnotherapy session. The person called to book and they were like, I'm a little short of the money. Can I bring something in trade? I was like, what have you got to offer me? And she's like, oh, I just cleaned out my attic and I have all these decks. I have all these tarot decks. And it was literally just like a few days after it was the very next session that I was doing. And she showed up with the same deck that I had, you know, been read for, the Mother Peace Tarot.
Yeah.
So now I have the deck and the book. And then I was down in my village and they have like a quiz night there at the local bar. And there were some women who run the yarn store in town and they saw me and they were like, Estelle, you read tarot, right? There's a question, get over here. And I'm like, I don't. They were like, you must. And they looked at me like, of course you do. And it was like the universe was just telling me. And they were like, well, if you want to learn it, we'd love you to read for this trunk show that we have coming up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was really like, you know, an invitation.
Synchronicity, just kind of like getting in alignment, and kind of pushing.
And that was like 4 or 5 years ago. And I went and studied. I just was like, okay, well, if the universe wants me to do this, I want to do it right. And I really want to study it. And I went on a conference at Omega and I just got all the books and started to like, you know, practice, of course. You know, you start with giving some free readings and then you start to charge a little bit and then a lot. That's how that goes.
So what's like the basic history of tarot, of like kind of how it got started and is used for people?
I don't know if people really can tell you. There's histories, you know, definitely the Middle Ages or the medieval times. There's decks that go back really, really far. I'm probably not the best at, like, I don't tend to live in the history of it all, but there is a book by Rachel Pollack that will give you all of that. The 72 Degrees of Tarot, I think it's called. But she's really, really the mother of the field right now and very well respected. And, you know, for people who want to investigate, you know, like how these things, I like to say during the pandemic, you know, that the tarot survived many, many pandemics, right? You know, it stuck around. If you think that you know, and I feel like the reasons are like, you know, the elements that we talked about earlier, the earth, the water, the air, the fire. These are, you know, ways that we can focus our attention and our intentionality on our health and our emotional well-being, our growth. And so people who use the tarot, in my experience, are able to see things from different perspectives. They're able to, like, it's a divination tool, right? So divination means to find the divine, to speak with the divine through a tool. So we're all godly, right? We are all divine, and the tarot is an opportunity to look at pictures and images and what do they say to us and what do they like remind. We're using the right side of the brain and not just the left side of the brain. We're integrating these elements and the masculine and our feminine and the whole of our lifespan. You know, from the Fool to the World, we have an opportunity to learn from generations that have gone by.
So what is your take on intuition? How does intuition fall into all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important, right? To be whole We have to realize that we're intuitive. There are things that are logical and strategic about the world, and then there are just the things that we know in our gut and in our heart, and in our soul. And sometimes we have to get quiet and use tools like divination, and which, of course, tarot is one of the strongest tools that's lasted, as we said, for centuries and centuries, because it's gathered all this wisdom and these archetypes into one place for us to sit with, to reflect with, to meditate with, to share our connection with another human being. So we can read for others, we can read for ourselves. And our intuition, I think I said to you, it's like a muscle that needs to be strengthened and practiced with, and the more that we use our intuition and we see the results of it and the magic, right? Like that we are magical beings, that we are capable of so much when we trust our intuition. And that we have to like elevate that aspect of our consciousness to give it due respect. Yeah.
I feel like another question I kind of want to bring up is for people that maybe like, how do I know what's my intuition? Like, how do I listen to it? And how do I know it's not my ego? And I feel like that's where like meditation comes into play, like the practice of meditation and feeling into your emotions and getting to know yourself and getting to know the different parts of you and how they sound. Like, okay, like my ego, when things come from my ego, it kind of has this taste or flavor or sound to it. And when it comes from my heart, it kind of feels like this. And when I follow this feeling, this is usually what ends up happening. So I should trust that. Or when I do this, things tend to go not the way I want them to. And really just sitting with those in meditation, I feel like the best way to kind of integrate that understanding so that you can move fast with leaning into trusting your intuition. And I think I consider like almost a pathway of developing your intuition is leaning into your edge, trying that, because it is scary. There are times when you're like, I don't know what this is, and I don't know how this feels, or, you have bad experiences where things didn't go the way you wanted to, and you thought you were trusting your intuition when really you weren't. And so just kind of healing yourself to that and being able to sit with it and dial in, because like ultimately I view like intuition, one of the purest connections is to source energy and to your higher self, what I consider your higher self, the version of you that can kind of see beyond the game and the rules that we get lost in at times. And so if we can connect with that and have a relationship with that part of ourselves, that's so powerful.
Absolutely. And one of the things that just really came through strongly as you were talking is just how important it is to trust, have mentors that we can trust in this process, because there are going to be times when we confuse our intuition with, say, our codependency or, with our fears.
It's a strong feeling, like when it gets triggered. Right.
Absolutely. It can be extremely, tricky to untangle. And the good news is we're not alone, right? Like I have a mentor, my mentor has a mentor, you have a coach, you have many coaches I know, and you get to coach the next generation. So if somebody watching this is like unsure, like, is my intuition on point? Like having a reflection, having a person who's been on the path just a little bit longer and can like guide you into, and ask the right sorts of questions. Because ultimately, if even a mentor can't tell you your own truth, but they can, a good mentor will know how to ask, and, how does this sit with you? Like, you said to me that your intuition is telling you this guy is great, like, how does your body feel with that? Like how has he reacted in these situations? And so like sometimes that's really the secret. The secret key is just get a good coach, get a good tarot reader, get a good person who you feel is asking the right questions, has themselves trodden this path, has made the mistakes for you. My mom, who is not like one of my key mentors, but does come up occasionally, she always said that an intelligent person learns by other people's mistakes. So
Yeah.
let us learn, do that. Let us make the mistakes for you. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
I
hope
feel
that helps.
the coaching part, helping other people tap into their intuition is really just, yeah, helping them come back to center, come back to their heart where they may be triggered in their head or kind of stuck in a
Right. Just
role
get
that they're
clear, right?
relating
Get
in.
really clear.
Yeah. And so just having someone that kind of reminds you of the simple basics of like, where's your heart? Are you grounded? Where's your breath? Come back into your body. And then really being able to sift through those thoughts and feelings and see what rings true, and fully aligns. How do you feel about the rising amount of like people becoming empathic or getting in touch with their sensitivities that's happening?
I think it's beautiful. I really do. I feel like it's one of the major positives that came out of the feminist era. So there's a lot of things that came out of the feminist era that I'm not a big proponent of. I feel like a lot of women got really into their masculine to a point that it was quite unhealthy. But the men getting into their feminine, kind of that period where it did start to become a little bit more acceptable for everybody, not just the men, but for everybody to lean into the trusting emotions, trusting their somatic experiences. And then we could kind of like recenter, right? We could all find a sort of safer, healthier way to be empathic and to have good boundaries around it and have better practices around it. But for a long time, it was sort of like, a girly thing to, like want to do. We were ignoring such a huge amount of information that we have to share with each other, to heal each other. So I feel like the post-feminist era, where women are finding our femininity again, men are finding their masculinity again, all of us are finding our empathy for each other and our empathic nature, and just really understanding our psychology and our just our consciousness. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like it's cool. It's been wild to kind of go through myself. I know maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, like I found the book, The Empath Survival's Guide by I forget her name, but she's like kind of the head runner. She was a psychologist, and predominantly most of her clients were empaths. So she started understanding and seeing the patterns and has like all this wealth of experience. But that book really resonated with a lot of the experiences I had been going through that I couldn't explain or articulate. And then like some spaces to just create boundaries and understand energy, like energy hygiene, energy connection. And I think that's like powerful, that it needs to like be taught, like especially if you are an empath, that isn't taught right now. So it's like,
yeah, and most empaths are coming from a lot of trauma. Like what is it that makes us really zone in on other people's emotions and feelings is when they're dangerous, right? And so we hear this archetype of the wounded healer, the person who themselves has, gone through their Phoenix rising moment. And, like that to me is something important when people are on this path, is just to take a look at, I find a lot of people jumping into helping others when they're a little bit down the path. And I don't have an issue with that. It's just, we have to stay very transparent. I feel like, I'm still working with this, and this is, what I have to offer. And this is the energy that I have available, and just be very, like you said, hygienic with ourselves of like, I'm still processing. And so, like when I was early in my career, I was, I would be working with people and getting triggered myself with the things that were coming up. And then essentially, I'm grateful that my mentors were helping me to go along for the ride and giving me techniques so that not only the client, but everybody was experiencing connection, which is such a huge part of healing, right?
I'm guessing too. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And now as I'm a little bit further down the road, I'm just a little bit cognizant that we need to be like really transparent about our trainings, our experiences, like whether or not an area is something that a person needs to go and like see somebody from Western medicine and make sure that they're getting, we're we're not missing that side of things. And then also be available with our Eastern mystic, wonderful, magical, empathy, because it's both, it needs the balance, right? We need both of those things for this to work really well.
Yeah, I feel that. And I feel the journey of that is, it's an interesting one because it's like, yeah, more as you're like rising in consciousness, I feel like more you're becoming aware more of like your behaviors and then where that behavior is coming from. So essentially healing wounds. And then that is making you more sensitive as well. And so then having to put new boundaries in play or adjust your behavior to honor the sensitivities that are coming through, and knowing when to like be aggressive, like when to do the other side of setting like the masculine, I think as well. Which I feel like I'm helping a lot of people kind of in the spiritual fields and empaths as well, is like learning that. It's like, yeah, like you want to nurture, like I like how Sadhguru says it. It's like nurture and butcher, right? Even with coaching clients, it's like you want to be nurturing and nurturing to yourself, but you also need to know like when to cut things off, when to be assertive, when to address, when to tell people back the fuck off and shit like that. So it's
You're
a balance.
the king of that, Ricky. You're the king of that.
I'm trying.
You are.
Yeah. And then the other part is too, is that having one foot in the physical world and one foot in the spiritual world, because there's a lot of people, and like a spiritual ego is a real thing. Like I definitely have it, and it's not necessarily bad because it kind of helps like collect all the knowledge you've gained through experience, but it's not the complete truth. And we can get sucked into that. And that's where you get like a lot of the know-it-alls out there that aren't taking action and they aren't making impact, right? They have a lot of truth and they know a lot of shit, but they're not like taking action and balancing out their physical needs too, just like taking care of your body, like you said, like the basic stuff, taking care of your body, doing things to get grounded, because that's important if you want to move forward and make a huge impact, is the management of your energy, as you're expanding. So
yeah, it's that air element. I see that is like really, really, it's actually interesting that the air today in my neighborhood is a mess. We have the smoke coming from the wildfires, and air, I find, is the element that is the most out of balance at the moment in the world. Whenever we're on our phones and we're learning, and you use that word know it all, and people are getting all this knowledge, and not actually like putting it into applying it. Right. People are getting really, really ungrounded. And then they're wondering why their arm hurts or their neck hurts. And it's like, well, you're holding your phone. I had a client recently and they were complaining about their neck and their arm. And I was like, is that the arm that you hold your phone in? Oh, my physical therapist never asked me that.
Yeah.
And because we show with the symptom and that they don't, we're not looking at the whole picture of our healing. And so much of it is like, yeah, we know a lot, but what are we doing? What are we doing with it?
Knowing when to be humble. Like you may be really good in like holding a high vibration and being able to bliss people out or have a lot of heart energy. There's also times when you need to be humble to ask for help to do basic things in the physical world. And that's like what I feel like I'm helping a lot of people do, is like just reminding them, like kind of like what you said, like, are you holding your phone? Just the basics. It's like you extend your excellence in one era, but it's like Einstein, right? He was a genius, but like he didn't know how to tie his shoes, just things like that. So it's like knowing that about yourself and knowing to have people around you to support you or remind you, and knowing when to be humble. Like, okay, I excel over here, but over here I still kind of suck, and I need to get better.
Absolutely. Some people are really amazing at their macros and they are brilliant in the body and they do excellent, but they don't have a relationship that functions because their heart energy, their water element is that they're not able to express themselves, from the heart. So, it's exactly that. It's having a place to go, whether it's a coach or a tarot session or Reiki healing, to like just really come into focus, into it. What is intuitively happening here? What is out of balance? What is missing? What is in excess, as they would, used to say in the Chinese medicine system, like too much of this energy or not enough of that energy. And I feel like just slowing down. I have a sign up in my study. It's like a road sign and it just says slow down.
Nice.
Like just what is going on here,
Get out of that masculine doing for a little bit and get into being.
Sit and be a high priestess for a minute. Let Ricky be the magician.
That's right. Do some tricks. What else was I going to ask? Or Oh, one key word I liked that you use, and I started using more of it, is harmony and disharmony. And that's like what I ask myself, what you were talking about is like, where am I out of disharmony, or where do I feel that there's disharmony? And then what is going to bring that into harmonization? Is there a part of myself I need to give attention to? And sometimes my inner child needs to come out. That's like one thing I'm noticing too. Like, it's like sometimes my inner child needs to party. And if he doesn't, like, he's going to throw a fit. But if I schedule like Sundays, like for where I can have some drinks and like go watch a movie or something I would do as a kid, then I'm fine. And then I can go back to like, the warrior, the king archetype, and focus on business. But I think that's really important, because even that goes into like refilling your cup of joy of like, and that's where the energy, that's where the magic comes from, of being able to refill that so you can bring that back to your work, that excitement and aliveness. The one last thing I want to end on is, tell me about Reiki, because I know you're getting into Reiki and doing a training coming up. So
yeah, it's been like I said, it was the beginning, and now, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And I would say that, I got my Reiki master certification a couple of years ago, and I've just been using it in my own sessions, but I haven't had the organizational skills to actually, put into practice the initiation for new people. And really that is, something I've always wanted to do, because I do feel it's part of the biggest solution that we have in our own hands, the amazing healing tools, right? And so somebody who was one of my clients started to pester me, and then Ricky is the perfect person to be like, let's get a game plan, let's make this happen. So I decided I will do that. I'm going to open the doors for a Reiki 1 training in August and show people, yay, right. It's the very first for World of Woo. And it, the lineages of Reiki go back to Japan, and a very amazing man who Yuzui was the system. But it's traveled, it traveled through that, the university in India, and my Reiki master was trained there. So the Reiki that I offer, and most Reiki people will tell you and encourage you to get as many different trainings as you can and get a flavor from different people, because we take on a little, version. So the core of the Reiki that I'll be training will be the Yuzui Reiki system. The flavor of it came through Kairava, my Reiki master, and Osho, and dynamism and moving energy. And it's come through where we met. We met through Thomas, who trains in, the Maharaji, like very loving and heart-centered bhakti yoga. Right. So there's a lot of bhakti yoga in my practice. And actually that totally shifted the way, before I learned bhakti yoga, when I would give Reiki, I would always be a little tired after. And I want to train people how to be actually healed as you're healing. So with bhakti yoga and Reiki together, you're going to actually, work on yourself or work on others, and everybody feels better afterwards. That's a really special aspect that I'm looking forward to sharing. So, it's Reiki 1 with a Estelle flavor.
I'm excited. I know nothing about Reiki, so I'm assuming it's focusing your energy through your hands to the other person where they have like a energetic blockage or like tightness in their body.
It can be, it's again, intuition is the key word with Reiki. So, if we're working on Reiki 1 is to use in person on oneself or another person. Later,
I feel like I naturally do it with myself. If like my energy's line, I can kind of focus my hands about, and it'll relax parts of my body.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing that we're doing when we do a Reiki 1 training is, we're tapping into that beautiful thing that humans do, which is ritual. Ritual is something that, shamans have been doing, and witches have been doing, ceremony. It's ceremony. And so if you think about the key moments in life, the moments that we remember, so many of them are ceremonies. My son is graduating high school on Sunday, and it's a ceremony ceremony that, you know, like it's important to have these moments. And so, yes, absolutely. Please don't believe that you can't heal yourself without a Reiki 1 training. You know, go put your hands on your body, love on yourself all day long, you know, anywhere and anyhow. I hate when spirituality has like, you know, has gatekeepers. You don't need to do, that's not what this is for. Reiki 1 is for a way to connect with other people. To learn some additional tools that you might not already know, because you know, I've been doing this for a while, so I've gathered some like little tricks and techniques for, like I said, raising the energy and making sure if you do work with another person that you're protected and that you both come out feeling better.
Awesome.
So that, you know, those are some of the tricks of the trade. And like I said, this sort of moment of reverence, this moment of reverence. There's an initiation in the Reiki, in every Reiki training, there's a moment of reverence. And I just feel like those moments where we sit with our teacher, where we sit with ourselves and mark that moment as a sort of like intentionality of how I'm going to live in future, what I have as a tool for myself now, it just raises the bar. You know, of that aspect. You can go away and be like, I'm Reiki 1. I've got a certificate. I'm going to give you guys certificates. And that's just a part of our nature, is we need that moment of, you know, learning and certification and recognition. It's going to be a recognition for the folks that show up, that they, you know, they took a moment out of this crazy busy life to do something real. Yeah.
That's amazing. I look forward to checking it out myself. When is that starting, or like around what time are you thinking about?
I picked a date. I think I put a date in the calendar. I think it was August 20th, I believe.
Okay.
I want to make sure I give people the right date, because I know that we just decided it's August 20th is going to be the Reiki 1 day. And I feel like it's going to be like a 4-hour kind of class with a half-hour lunch for people who can come to my location, which is here in Hastings-on-Hudson, New York. But I also want to record a Reiki 1 so that people all over the world can have access to this kind of training. And that's you know, Ricky and I are going to work that out. He's my person for helping me with those things so that people can have access. And this is just the early days of us putting the magic and the intention out into the world. You heard it first here.
I'm excited. I'm excited for you to share your gift with more of the world and be a part of that. So to wrap up, what last minute or what would you say for inspiration for people that are just tapping into their mystic side, the mystic archetype for them? Maybe empaths that are out there that are kind of waking up to these realities, going through spiritual awakenings and seeing that there's more to the world than we've been taught.
Yeah, go take a look at a magician card. Like, here's the other one that we talked about. This is the magician from the can you see that, from the steampunk tarot? And he has the infinity symbol above his head. And really, I feel like that's a great one to take away. It's just, I tattooed it on my wrist, the infinity symbol. Like, you have infinite power when you're in your mystic.
Yeah.
You know, like, you can sit with a magician card from any tarot deck and just like embody, like, you know, guru yoga with that magician, and really like feel into what that means for you. What have you got to share with the world, to make impact, to you know, like be intentional with our words and with our decisions, and it shifts when we allow ourselves to be magical. But, you know, and for some people, that's going to be kind of like, you know, a pirate magician, and another one, it's going to be like a little bit more of a fairy magician, sorceress or something. Find your own magician, and find inspiration from others. Be like, go back to the fool is between every card. Be you know, an inner child a little bit with your magician, and explore, what does it mean for you?
That's beautiful. Yeah. I feel like, tapping into, it's almost like the mind of a student, always learning, right? And I see that in you a lot too. It's just that desire to learn more and go into the unknown and learn different skills. And what happens when I learn this skill? Who do I become? And I think that's amazing for people to tap into. So thank you so much, Estelle. This was amazing. We'll have to do it again.
Yes. Thank you, Ricky.